Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Richard Waring, and I have been running this PoemWorks reading series for a long time. Initially, it was run by Wendy Drexler for 1 year, and I filled in at one point, and from then on, I got picked to be our host. So it goes. I like long-running situations, although they don't necessarily happen in my marriages. Um, Anyway, I've got a couple of quotes that I want to share before we begin introducing the featured poets. E.B. White said, I rise in the morning torn between a desire to improve the world and a desire to enjoy the world. This makes it hard to plan the day. Rachel Carson wrote, if there is poetry in my book about the sea, it is not because I deliberately put it there, but because no one could write truthfully about the sea and leave out the poetry. And lastly, Robert Frost said, poetry, it's the ultimate. The nearest thing to it is penultimate, even religion. And that's where I got the notion for every reading that I posted, more or less, to use the word penultimate whenever I could. And so there I've done it. Well, tonight, uh, I am pleased to introduce Rick Reibstein, who is a longtime environmentalist who considers his work a form of poetry, as it involves wrestling with mysterious forces, seeking the sources of life and intelligence, calming roiled waters, fully absorbing beauty, stimulating perception, collaborating in forming visions, just as when he sits down to write what people usually refer to as poetry. This he has done since he was a teenager, inspired by his mother reading Allen Ginsberg's Howl to him and discovering Lawrence Ferlinghetti and Denise Levertov, but above all, by his mother's poems. She was published in dozens of little magazines. Perhaps seeing how much labor she put into the effort made him into a poet who only occasionally tries to publish and keeps the act of writing as simply pure pleasure for the most part, except sometimes he submits something or takes a handful to a local printer and makes up 50 copies of something. Previous titles include The Urge Constructs, The Dream of the Puzzle of the World, The House of Favored Memories, Books for a New World, Amulet of Amaxa, and Take My Hand. For the government of Massachusetts, he provided assistance to anyone in reducing the use of toxic chemicals, energy, water, or materials that become waste. He teaches environmental law and policy at BU. He is one of the organizers of litigation to force the United States to restore the noise abatement and control program that Ronald Reagan defunded. He tries to deconflict issues by focusing on opportunities to move forward to which no one can reasonably object. That's the kind of poetry he meant at the beginning, but he is looking forward to reading the other kind, the kind that comes to him and he finds himself writing as an act of soul expression and for that feeling. Please welcome Rick.
Thank you, Richard. I love your quotes.
Thank you.
Mountain. Around the bend, the mountain comes into view. It says, I'm here for you. I'm here for you to climb, to push your body to the top of me. I will take you back in time. You will join me in my reverie. Here, we daily discourse with the sky who loves our curving body. Step within it on me, person.
Hmm.
There's no reason There's no reason to stop now. The important things I'm doing to abstain from shopping, refrain from responding, lay off planning, abjure fretting, cease chasing small desires in order to write a poem. No reason at all, except these blossoms that happen to be glowing pink to purple, their fragrance like a chorus of soft voices, or the merry to burnt orange leaves of this maple, or the plain, straightforward, calm red, brown, green of this cathedral of a beach. Even the ordinary is miraculous. Where does it come from? The wind that organizes the aromas and gives the leaves their subtle, sweet, enveloping voice. That is why we must stop what we are doing and write poems, because this is a very important question, and it is one way a person can find a clue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The light in darkness. A poem sometimes is like a mole in the lawn that you know is there, but you never see. Maybe a glimpse one day of it moving before it's gone. Maybe even seeing its poor dead body when its little life is done. But mostly, it exists and you know it, but you can't see it. You can't put your hands on it. You can't grab it. You can't pet it. You can't kiss it. You can't smell it. You don't know what it feels like for it to run over your hands with its tiny feet clutching, its snuffling nose tickling. You don't know its hopes or dreams, but it is your lawn, and the mole is your poem, and the mole is you. Think about that as you softly pet it, as it snoozes on your palm. Stay calm. If you remain in the dream, it will not bite, nor will you suddenly fear it and fling it away, which would hurt it dreadfully, and your own heart would ache for having so heedlessly killed your own poem. It need not end that way. Pet the mole. He closes his, does he even have any eyes, with pleasure, like a cat. His fur is quite beautiful when you take a closer look. Somehow, though he crawls in soil, he's clean. He gleams. I bend and gently give him back to the earth. I don't know how he does it, but within moments he is gone into it. Part of me wishes I could go with my poem and know what it is like to have the world completely surrounding me with no sky, to burrow completely inside. That is the part that was a starving poet when I was young. I live above ground and have poems now that are birds and rabbits and trees. I see them. They make my life sweet. The mole appears from a land of my own I do not know and steals himself back, leaving only a glow to where my eyes, comfortable with light, do not see. There, where my mole poems live, I imagine there is something else, something seemingly unmoving, but alive with locked up energy. The rock makes it immortal. The rock will not let you have it. The rock will not let you see it. But if you can walk the halls of this world, the song surrounds and enters you. My mole understands that song and sings it with his tiny, cute trill. His articulated nose quivers as he raises it to praise in contributory harmonic pleasure, the light within darkness.
Mm, very nice.
A trail. I have been sitting. Movement is now hard. Some part of me has the requisite wisdom and commands me to walk. I consider my choices and choose this trail behind a public park among houses. For years, I did not know it was here. Now, immediately, the trail enchants. I see hints around the curve of my future on it, of the greens I love and new yellows and red. The trail pulls me and says, I will tire you, and you will sleep tonight in your bed. It leads me to a stately oak and still majestic hemlock, and down to hard red, buried and purple flowering swamp, and now wild, bright blooming weeds, blue, violet, and yet fresh white among the resin poison ivy and yellow-brown ferns curling. The trail urges me to cross fields that bring the sky right down to be breathed, and skirting the edge of the dark forest pulls me on and in to climb, to make my body think there is joy in work, think that it will earn back the youth I've spent in pleasure seeking. But only part of me knows this. Only part of me remembers. And the noisy demands of all the other parts pull more strongly than this gorgeous trail today, and I must go home. I try to store the beauty, the freedom to be what they are of the trees, the orange-brown grass tops brightly picking up the dying sun in whatever corners of my bones and muscles I can reach, to stuff into every inner shelf and cubbyhole the treasures I find here today. Okay, I'm leaving the country now and going back into work. The issue. We approach it together. It is, as the young ones say, gnarly. There is someone screaming bloody murder, and there are respectables around a table examining documents. There are undetermined facts, contradicting experts, some seeming objective, some clearly biased, some clearly paid to be biased. They must wish they are somewhere else. Everyone wishes the issue was not here, in our lives, blocking our view of happiness. Pitfalls await those who advance, as well as those who refuse to move. Sorrow lurks and joy is absent. We stare at the intractable issue, and then we turn to stare at each other, wondering, who the hell are we? How did we get into such trouble? How long will the problem last? When will we say it has passed? Why do we find ourselves so lost and harassed? Are we not capable of sitting down quietly and sorting things out? Everyone knows this is our chance to grow up. We all know we can and ought to. We stare at the future as if it is a television show of the greatest quality, and the actors are portraying us. But we cannot pass through to become who we know in our hearts we really are. We can see ourselves as we should be. I shall take comfort in that, though I rage to break the glass. Okay, back to the country. If I still have time to do some more.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. This is the meaning of the dance. The clutch of ravens who appeared, riding the rising billowing of air, pushed up by the mountain. Two dazzle danced across the sky above us and then below, a poetry of wings and clever wingtips, veering and pairing and peeling off and wheeling around to nearly touch while turning, and then sweeping up and then diving head down. We assumed at first it was, of course, a male pursuing a female, and we heard in his raven speech urgings to land and couple. And we read in the continued flying the female saying with dignity and grace, "Not now, dear." But then we considered, could it be a parent exulting with its child who has just learned to become such an expert flyer? Or were they both enraptured with the kind of joy young skateboarding boys show, when they floated and dipped and dropped and whirled in sync, drawing curving lines in the sky for our enjoyment? It sure looked like fun. Maybe it wasn't any of those things. Maybe it was about something we can hardly imagine. Maybe they were performing for the god of birds. Or maybe it was all the simple product of a chance gathering of cells, feathers, and wind. I do not need to understand this. Without my understanding, it has written itself on the inner wall of the room where I keep my love of beauty. Something to reckon with. They have their beehive there and some quiet raised beds where the lawn tilts into meadow that meanders into the mystery of a surrounding wood. Hillocks block the raucous, busy road noise nearby. Sweet, I'm hearing birds. For too long I have not. I can hear how they're keeping in touch with each other. Still, it sounds like serenade. The sun is, of course, too powerful. Her opponent, Winter, gravely wounded by foolish man. Yet we cannot but be glad for her, even as she too early lights local waters. She is still making precious bits of finely wrought ice. You can find them hiding under shade. The celebration of the world has not yet been murdered. And like Dionysus, chopped and stomped, it rises again. Every spring, he and Persephone, and we too. My sap rises with the maples, and I flower and seed along with the flowers and weeds, and all the people around me, even the soured ones, do too. No matter how crazy it can get, there's something we can use to make them reckon with us. For stopping. The man in the wheelchair crying for spare change has that slight cerebral palsy voice that can sound like maybe he's drunk if you've never heard it before. He is clean. I stop and take out my wallet to see if I have $1, and he says, "God bless you, sir." And I say, "I haven't given you anything." And he says, "I bless you for stopping, sir," as people rush past.
Hmm.
I have to read a poem of my mother's since
Oh,
I mentioned
nice.
her.
Excellent.
My mother passed away in 1985. She once won the American Poetry Society Award and has been printed in many little magazines. But her name, Regina Reibstein, is probably not as well known as it ought to be. Um, Bargain. Some go without fuss, some stupid, unseeing, perhaps lured with a promise. For me, let me offer a bargain, though no one suggests that you listen to reason or soften at pleas for indulgence. You may nonetheless be amused to do business with small scale promoters. Settle each doubt, befuddle the tracers, and edit the papers with graceful dissembling. Make it look gentle, make it look gallant. Then I'll go meekly. That gives you a feeling of why I wasn't so inspired by her.
Yes, yes. Fantastic.
More?
How about one more?
Okay, one more. For a moment, forget. Let's stop doing all these things that we are doing for just a moment. Stop. Now, what happened? Start it up again. What if we stop again and don't start up? What happens? Inside of me, a hand goes up. Yes, you, I call on myself. What is it? I stand getting taller every second before myself, which as I ask about it becomes a crowd of strangers and say, I would be stripped of everything. And suddenly I'm naked. Everyone has disappeared, and I have no pockets, no wallet, keys, phone that would have been in it. I can't remember my name. And then another me is who I am. And I am saying, I don't care. And then another is who I can be. And I am saying, yes, I do. And I snap back to knowing my name. I never did not know it. I just did not care. And was it so terrible in that millisecond being lost in space? The me who sits now in this chair, who commands the fingers that write, who laughs when friends come over, who makes dinner, who earns keep, this me, the one who carries his name or is carried by it, tips his head back as if fondly recalling his favorite vacation spot. But all memories of that and of the mountain stream into which he placed his bare, aching feet for glorious relief. That place of precious memory, like all others, flies by. And for that moment of being nothing, he was in fact a bird of the pure sky. You probably have to read that one like 2 or 3 times. I have to read that one 2 or 3 times to get what I'm talking about.
Wow. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You really do activate the E.B. White quote of wanting to save the world and wanting to love the world, those twin pursuits. Really
That's one of my
appreciate
favorite
that.
quotes, Richard, that you gave.
Yeah, yeah, really appreciate your work.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for that comment, Deborah.
Well, next month, uh, December 6th, we will have Clara Silverstein, who recently had a book accepted for publication, and Lee Varon, who is here with us tonight. And now, please welcome Shelby Allen, who was ushered into the world of publishing poets by Barbara Helfgott Hyatt and the Poem Workshops community. Shelby's book, Cracked Willow, was published by Cherry Grove. Her poems appear in literary magazines, including Tefrit, Phoebe, and New Millennial Writings, and the Westchester Review, and as a public art carved into a Newton sidewalk. She was a poetry mentor for Massachusetts State Prison inmates for 10 years, ditto for Falmouth first graders, though not in prison, but you might see the comparison. I don't know. Poets are poets, she learned. She's published prose in the New York Times and the Boston Globe, and her play, Not Done Yet, a play with music about aging, opened last year to overflow audiences at the Falmouth Public Library. She's revising the play for a broad audience. Please welcome Shelby.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Rich, and thank you, Rick. I'm new to your work, but uh, I appreciated your explanation of where it comes from, leaving the world that we know for a world we don't know, and lines just leaped out, performing for the god of birds, a bird of the pure sky. So these creatures need someone to speak for them, and I'm glad you're listening. I have I also listened to the birds, but came to poetry for a different purpose. Uh, and I'd like to dedicate my time here, with thanks to Richard, dedicated to Barbara Helfgott Hyatt, an amazing teacher, the kind of teacher that hears what you're not saying. And if you've ever had that kind of teacher or aspired to be one, you know how valuable they are. I'd like to read a poem, that's Barbara. I'd like to read a poem I wrote before Barbara came into my life. Way to go. I have found I leap tall buildings with a single bound, going to New York City to leap. That place is for lovers, said mine, but I split. I recovered my tracks, New York City, click, click. My heels are the spikiest, cars and buses nudge knees. Then I duck the bridge, stay in the right lane into Manhattan. The sign is green, pink spires on the Hudson River, fires of morning fog, this way to the Palisades. Sing SEX, sing NYC. I strut through the shiny, strong metal, sharp air. New York scratches my eyes. Am I scared? A man grabs me. Please, you tell me, where is Times Square? A woman in a sari eats a bagel with frosting. A man in a cap reads the stock page aloud. The Dow is up 5/8. How about that? Harlem plays the best ball in the country sign. Speak to me true, do not stop, and this means you. A cab driver stops. Wash the cab, wipe the glass, sweep the floor, making it in New York fabulous face. Room for one more? I'll be back like a rat loves a big dirty place. I'll return in my climbing shoes, hike to the sky on the island of steel trees, and never ask why. To move up, you go down. If I'm not in New York City, I'm just out of town. Well, but with Barbara, I felt I reached, I could reach other areas. This one is called Roller Coaster Days with Jay's Lungs. We live in moments, up, down, and yikes. His harsh gulps for air, like scraping gravel from his throat, groans when no air comes, and always the hum of the oxygen concentrator. Shark in Jay's swimming pool. It's like I'm living underwater, he says. He made my writing life possible. Keep going. Do you need money? Married nearly 50 years. He teases me, and I fall for it. Is he dead yet? Shouts a woman across our street. She kept 2 dogs chained who bark day and night. They're gone. How long does Jay have? About 2 hours a day when he can focus. Help me plan, I say. When can we talk? He can't predict. I want to understand, I tell him. I don't want to talk about talking, he says. I'm Jay now, the new roof, the plumbing, the generator. He is teaching me his system for the practical life, rates me tops in banana ripeness selection. Too perfectionist. I fancy myself the perfect caregiver, but don't put me on some checklist, he warns. He can't leave the house, needs 4 kitchen trips to make a sandwich. We laugh, though. Bad movies are good. Recent roller coaster dip. Claustrophobia. Stay 2 feet away. I moved my chair back, but stood too close anyway. Invaded his realm. Chair, table, TV. Throat tight, shaking fists at myself. Last week, I threatened to leave. Didn't. 1:03 a.m., the oxygen concentrator died, and the oxygen guy got lost. We need a change, I said. Let's have lunch on the deck. Brisket and home fries, delicious. But I couldn't breathe, Jay told me afterward. He almost drowned in the watery air. I walked alone through the mist. Air and marriage, both precious, both invisible, and enduring as the hum of the oxygen shark. These are mostly personal. My mother was water, a sea with no shore. We were drowning till I remembered my own arms and legs. Mother, swim with me. This is my book that Richard referred to. It's mostly about trees. I took this photo. People have come to me. They know this tree. It's on the Esplanade in Boston.
Wow.
Anyway, it spoke to me. Crack willow. The bark carves paths in itself to earn its name. Wind pushed this tree. The strongest branch kneels. These roots kick through dirt that nourished but buried them. The kneeling branch groped for the river, bent sideways. Too far, the tree split. Unclosable wound that opened a space where someone lit a fire. The heartwood is charred soft. Saplings are rising at the edge of the scar. I want to leave trees. I have, for a moment, I have 3 at poems. At, A-T.
Okay.
Poet at the Table, Northampton, Massachusetts, 1920. Uncle Joe met Robert Frost playing golf on a cold day, brought Frost home for warming to the house of few books. Papa lorded, Mama ladled. Eat, eat, Mr. Frost. Uncle Lou slurped borscht, Uncle Norm noodled, Aunt Charlotte stewed. The boys always got more. Aunts Ethel and Sadie chewed sour gripes left over from breakfast. Aunt Libel fluttered her napkin, while my father Abe quietly sipped. The guest ate it up with a spoon. He wasn't boldface Robert Frost then, but Libel remembered him. Said, when Mama died, he wrote the nicest note, which no one saved.
Mm.
At Senior House, I'm visiting M. Sit closer, she says in small puffs. She's wrapped in a cloud, doll size at 90, in a half-filled blouse. Friends for 40 years, she greets me. We boosted each other, hiked everywhere, laughed at our stumbles. Now heavy sneakers keep her from falling or moving. They do everything for us here. Enhanced living is the official name for it. The aide ties my laces in a bow. I guess it's lunchtime. There are 3 different dining rooms she doesn't go to. Someone delivers a box of something. You eat so fast, she says, bent close to her plate, lifting a shaky fork at the pace the moon orbits the earth. I can't hold a pen or brush anymore, she admits. The tools she lived for. Remember? The third act, Sparrow at Starbucks. I was contemplating crumbs when in he flew. The glass wall had an opening and he found it. He turns, perched on twig legs, juicy notes and no fear, he turns a ceiling rafter into a launch pad for music. His throbbing small throat puffs up wide. Will it burst? What do I want so much? That I would sing anywhere, as if a ceiling were only the sky. I live in the city and in Boston, and so here's some city poems. Port Authority, 3 a.m. Underground prison, every face yellow and guilty in the bad light. Doom hour, only bus I could take. Dead coffee for sale, 1 chair left. Metal legs scrape the floor, my table mate, leathered and rough, tight bandana menacing his forehead, snaky hair, stomper boots, I'll run if I have to. Sets out his weapons. Mug of elderberry tea, 1 carton of chocolate milk, warm smile. Etiquette. On the street, I pass a ragged man who speaks to me. I'm not sure how to beg, he says. Do I bow a little? I'm not sure how to give, I say. The whites of his eyes are greasy and yellow. I used to work, he says, reaching for the dollar I'm holding, then yanks back his hand. I don't bum off women. 7 combat medals march across his beret. Is it rude to leave? I turn my back on him. Wait, he calls. Pride. I wait in a doorway for wind to die, watch another woman head into the wind, rock with it, buffeted by it. Her backpack is ballast. She leans forward, prow of her own ship. The boats are on her feet. Men's sneakers, one sole flaps loose. Her frayed jacket is roomy enough to sleep in. With warrior eyes, she fishes in a trash can, finds cellophane. I'm so close. I can see she's cut other cellophane into rectangles, pinned them to her jacket like medals that reveal and protect paper sheets covered with writing. Her body of poems. I have one more. This is excuse me. This is a strange but true poem.
Excellent.
Okay. Fox in a stroller. You don't own me. You purchased me. In some human places, it's legal. You named me Phyllis, but I am Fox, unnamed in my own language. You tied a bonnet on my head, and now you're wheeling me through a pet store. I can't run or hunt in this hard, smooth place. You've been feeding me tuna with its metal can taste, zipped me into a contraption that is crushing my magnificent tail. The fake sun glares. I need twilight, subtlety, a forest tapestry of smells. I can hear a mouse squeak through 100 trees. Shall I rid your field of rodents? You have a field. I won't play fetch or be your pal. I travel light, travel private. I could teach you stillness and how to find cover. Make a wide circle before you pounce. Why bother? My night cry would pierce your heart.
Wow, that was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me and Rick together.
Wonderful, wonderful Fox poem. And I love the Robert Frost poem.
Corroborated by two relatives.
Good.
Of course, the note gone, but
I'm sure you weren't around in 1920.
please. I'm trying. That picture has stayed with me. This raucous, combative, competitive group of relatives. There's 10 of them, and he loved it. It was different from what
Fantastic. All right. Well, we have a few open mic poets, and I want to start by introducing David Miller.
Oh, hi everyone. Yeah, hi. Shelby and Rick, it was great to hear these poems. That's great, fascinating storytelling. Shelby and Rick, your poem about the mole reminded me of something that I heard Sharon Olds say. Sharon Olds, the poet, say someone asked her sort of the standard Q&A question. It's like, where do you get your ideas for poems? Or there's a question like that, and she answered something like, well, I get this sort of hunch that like I'm seeing a mouse out of my peripheral vision, kind of like run away, and I have to go and get it. You know? When she has that impression, there's something there. She's got to go get it. Okay.
Love that.
Yeah. So this poem is titled Against Being Stupefied. The morning glory's quick life force sparked their tendrils in a new direction. this late summer's over-ripening days. Risen from the second floor porch pot, twisted through the wind spinner's stalled blades, self-hoisted into the low branches of our Evodia tree. Now, the Evodias ornamented two ways at once, twined purple blossoms, clusters of maroon fruit. A small red-headed girl, 3 years, adventures around the block with her mother, one hand holding a stuffed white rabbit, shopping bag across her other wrist. New ones to me, these two, this 2nd of September. At the corner, daughter hesitates, mother points their next way. My story for them, it's their first new neighborhood walk around. The girl learning to propel herself on the sidewalk. Inside, behind the curdled pixels, contenders ridicule human worth, as always, as arenas full of hands stretch to heaven. On repeat, others' depth of skin tone, the turns and curves of vowels and consonants, the topographies of their faces, versus a sea of flagstaffs, high relief triceps, and the star speaker's index finger poised to fire. Next corner, up street, the morning's black cat paces to the no parking sign, pauses to lie on the pavement, gets up and paces as the expected man arrives to unlock and raise the grate of the turquoise bodega with sea green steps. A lone end-season cottonwood seed floats past a mourning dove on a wire. The grate gaps just enough for the cat, bounding straight upstairs to Las Villas Market, beneath the metal's corrugated rattle. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Up next, please welcome Xiaoly Li.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you, Rick and Shelby. I enjoyed your poems, and also I enjoy the way you read it, so lively and very impressive. Today I'm going to read a poem called Mind-Body Duet. And it's a conversation and language by body and by mind. So if I put this way, it's body. If I raise this hand, it's mind. Body-mind duet. Body. When I was born, my silhouette etched against the sky. Your natural soft radiance bathed my every cell. Mind. I was not aware of you or me back then. Just air, just play. In the golden years, you brimmed rivers of blood, pulsated volcanic energy. Yet you drained me ceaselessly, like siphoning an endless ancestral wellspring. It was your thirst that could not be doused. Your appetite for sweeter nectar tempted and lost me into endless toil. You were a silent black box. Your dirt clogged my flow, strangling my tendons and fascia like a fish cultivated in a net. You pained my neck, arms, and back. I thought you were strong once, an athlete. You squeezed the breath from each of my cells, propelled me to assail an organ. You startled me, and my inner quest begins. Each day, I feel every inch of you and let go of my clinging or aversion. Lower your pace, listen to my rhythm, reclaim our rugged terrain, our shared land. Thank you.
Fantastic. Really love that.
Thank you.
And our penultimate poet, Deborah DeNicola.
Um, oh. This is from my book, The Impossible. And when I first wrote it, someone in my poetry group said it was one of those poems that reminded her of Wallace Stevens' quote, "Poetry must resist the intelligence almost completely."
Hmm.
So don't worry if it feels unintelligible. It's called What Touches. And thank you, Shelby and Rick. It was a lovely evening, and I love everybody's sense of humor and style. What touches? Too many pillows on the bed of your body. What are they hiding there above the sateen sheets? Displacement that holds your imprint? The soul's enchantment into form? Do your arms fit the sleeves of dreams dreamt in the fit of elixirs fixed on the nightstand? And where is the door to the temple, the body as diamond, as ingress into dimension, or the body as sacred housing, as golden dome, as blanket, hiding what is meant to bide secret under the soul skin, too tarnished to reveal itself fully? There's folly in disbelieving the leaving, believing only the left form, not the conceivable leaving as entrance to elsewhere. What touches, then let's drop. Not the step through the mandorla, but the inexorable going back. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you so much. Well, I will end this session of reading with a poem midwived with the help of Gray Held. And it has to do with the fact that America can be a grim place. A lot of doom scrolling, a lot of sad words being said. This poem is called High Time. It's high time my native tongue adopted more words for pleasure. Czech has not, jumping out and shouting boo. Arabic has some more, to sit together at sunset. I want everyone to say productie, Dutch for twinkling eyes of someone doing mischief. Can't we as a nation go around shouting Mabuki, Mavuki, Swahili for shedding one's clothes in order to dance? Children should be hired to rewrite our dictionaries. We only know that for which we have words, like hoppa pillow, Icelandic for jumping into puddles. I'd even settle for Querlani, the strange quiet before a momentous event. And it would be momentous. But Jesus, America, we have a long way to go. And that's our show for tonight. Thank you all for being here. Any last words before we depart for our other various adventures?
Richard, where do we get those words? I want them all. I mean, there's only couldn't be too many. What is it? Jumping into puddles?
Yes, I would love to
Strange
have
quiet
a
before
word
an
for that.
event.
No, the one about
Close up and dance. What was it?
taking off your clothes before you dance.
Mabuki,
That's what, not Swahili.
Swahili. It led to the use of the word boogie woogie.
Oh, wow.
So we do have boogie woogie, but it doesn't
Yeah,
explicitly
that's
say
not the same.
go naked forth in dancing.
I wish you would email that poem to us. The
Yeah,
word is great.
Yeah.
great.
Well, thanks for not reading that first. So it would have been a hard act to follow.
No, Deborah's spoken up. I've spoken up. I'm sure we'd all read it carefully if you can email it.
Well,
If
it's
you
just I
Maybe
felt
not.
the need for more words about joyful activities in
Yeah.
these very trying and very broken times.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
may it be different. May it happen as many of us hope. And may democracy continue in these very troubled times.
But poetry will continue somehow.
Yes. They don't tend to kill the poets. The poets to sing the songs
They
about
do
what happened.
sometimes kill the poet. Yeah, they do.
They do.
Yeah.
And it's
But
very wrong
some
of
great
them.
poetry can be written in very dark times too.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, well, let's not look forward to that.
No, but
That's the best case scenario.